guess, Morris, as time gets closer and closer to October 21st, we are now looking at the time where your job is going to be ending as mayor in your term. Has that sunk in yet?
Very much so. The big decision point is deciding whether to run or not to run. And once you've made that decision, and I made that decision almost a year ago, the rest is a matter of managing through the finale. I have to tell you, it's very odd to see an election swirling around me and not be part of it, because for the last 18 years, whenever the election writ was dropped, I was in the race, and now that's not the case, and it does feel odd. But I know the decision was right, because although I'm watching the election, I don't want to be part of it, and I just didn't have another election in me. If I could have been mayor for another couple of years, I likely would have stayed with it. But the thought of going through an election, they're very brutal, and they suck up enormous amounts of physical energy and psychic energy. They really are wearing, and I've done 8 of them. I've done 7 in the municipality and 1 federal. That was my limit. I knew I was done.
Looking at the election still and seeing it happen from an outsider now, and seeing where, is there something that we're forgetting? I mean, you've been a part of this. I mean, there's a lot of the signs everywhere. The public forums are coming and going. There's a lot of things happening within this election. Are we forgetting the roots of something in this election? Are we forgetting? Is there something that are we on the right note here with this election?
I think we're on the right note. The only thing I see in this election is there's a huge focus on the bike lanes issue. I mean, bike lanes is almost a catchphrase, and I'm a little afraid that the simplicity of bike lanes, yes, no, maybe, is going to sway people's vote in a way that the results may not be what they want. What I mean by that is that bike lanes is a very public issue to get your head around. I mean, it's there. Things like the social issues and debt and poverty and taxes and even snow removal is more complex than bike lanes. Now, snow removal was the catchphrase in the last election. Bike lanes has really shouldered its way to the front on this one. And I'm not sure, based on pro-bike lane or anti-bike lane, you're going to get the best mix on council. And it worries me that people may vote on the bike lane thing. Now, I may be worrying about something the public is way too smart. The public usually gets it right. But I am a little concerned that the bike lane issue, which is the sort of pop-up issue, is getting a lot of airtime and could skew the election results.
And when you're looking at that, I mean, and that's the thing I look at it, and you're right, and I think when we look at an election issue, one person doesn't make the big decision. As a mayor,
yep.
you know what it takes.
It takes 9 people to discuss something, and it takes 5 of them to be in support of it. And so nothing happens that isn't thoroughly debated. And for people to talk about accountability and transparency, they haven't any idea how much transparency and accountability there really is. Because even on the floor of council, you've got 9 people who have to be accountable to one another. And so on. So another way of looking at the present election is that sometimes somebody will run in an election on one issue. They will say, I was really upset over the fact that my driveway didn't get plowed last winter, and I'm on a snow removal rant. And that's the only thing they know anything about. And I'm not sure they even know much about that, if the truth were told. And so it always makes me nervous when I get candidates who are one-string banjos, because they don't last very long. Because as soon as they get into the mix, they wilt quickly. You need people who are broad, who are well-educated, well-informed, and able to look at things objectively. That's who we want on council. We don't want people who are narrow, who only represent seniors, or who only represent business, or who only represent, there are all sorts of factors. We want people who represent seniors and business and youth and arts and snow removal. We want everybody the broad. And that's a comment on the ward system. The ward system tends to divide and conquer. We don't necessarily find that's the best way to go.
I look at this election, and you talked on this, it's not being narrow-minded on certain things, it's about open-minded. A good councillor, a good mayor, obviously works well together. Key points of that is that it works well together, open mind, and find solutions.
Yeah, and can debate the issue, not the personality. See, that's the trick. Sometimes we get so carried away with who it is that's involved, we can't see the true issue.
Looking at this election, and saying this as an outsider, we're going to get to you. I want to talk about you after as well, just about where you're going, what's going to happen. But I look at this election, and you see the people that are running again, and people that are coming new, and they're part of the different worlds. A good mix of people, you said, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Seeing it eye to eye. Do we have that potential? I mean, this is the most probably candidates we've had in a long time. 30 candidates for council, 5 for mayor. Are you happy with the way that this is going, in the sense that there's some their voices are coming in? Because in the past we've had 20%, a voter turnout, and maybe this sparks a bit.
Well, whenever there's a change of mayor in the offing, that generates some interest. So hopefully the number of people taking the time and bothering to vote will go up. I would very much like to see that. The fact that we have 30 candidates, even if some of them are fringe candidates for mayor or for council, is an indication that there's an interest in the political future of our community. And so while 30 candidates makes it very difficult to sift through, many of those people are self-selecting. You've got a number of the current councillors are allowing their name to stand for re-election. Councillor Stefan is ineligible because he's moving outside the city, but the rest, I think, are putting their name forward. They have a record to put forward, and the public will either support that or not. And then you have a number of new people, and they range from very respectable candidates to candidates who you wonder why on earth they're running, because they appear not to really understand what the whole situation is about. But you touched on something earlier, and that is listening to people. When you're in public office, the most important thing you can do is listen. And listen and absorb all the views, because you will get the views from the extreme on one side to the extreme on the other. And that's an important tool that politicians use or councillors use to weigh issues and make decisions. I was just talking briefly to someone about snow removal. And snow removal is one of those things that, how much money are you going to put into it, and what quality of service do you want? More money, more service. What's the cutoff point at which? And council is faced with that. They listen to the public, they try and gauge what level is really what the most people want, and then they buy that package. Does it make everybody happy? No. There's a whole lot of people who think that we're putting too much money into snow removal, and there's a whole bunch of people that think we're not putting enough money into snow removal. So it's a kind of a no-win completely, but it's a compromise that the council is called upon to come to, and that comes from listening.
One thing that came up last night, the ward system thing, and one of the panels talked about big centers like City of Edmonton and Calgary, how some councillors would have donations of like money raised $1 million to 900,000 to 600. Is there a corporate influence in elections? I mean, in Red Deer too. I mean, we look at the small, and I say this because it's been out there. It's been people have been questioning, and I don't like to use people's comments and stats and stuff, but I really want to clear the air and kind of explain to people that they're the way that it does happen. In cities in Edmonton, Calgary, we've seen it. It was brought up to the attention and people asked about that. But in Red Deer, do we see that corporate influence or corporate support? And I say that, it's kind of, and I'm saying this as a...
I think we have developed a set of bylaws around election support. There's a limit to what the individual can put in for their own campaign, and there's a limit to what an individual can receive from any entity, whether it's a corporation or a private. Now, why do people provide money for people to run for office? Simply because they want to support them. Now, would it go so far as to buy a position? It could happen. I don't think it would ever happen in Red Deer. But I know when I was campaigning, I would get money from a particular corporation, but I knew that they also gave money to my competitor because they want to see that there's an actual competition, and they want to support people who are ready to put their name forward. You know, I've often made the remark, was I the best person for mayor? Not likely. I can think of many people who would have made a much better mayor than I would have, but I was the only one who put my hand up. So you see, the private individuals and corporations want to support that. They want you to know that they value the fact that you're ready to put your name up. We have a set of bylaws that I think will look after any vote buying, if that's a fear. And anytime I've received money in a campaign, I never felt any obligation, nor was I ever pressured by the donor to ever. I had money come from people I didn't even know. I had in my first campaign, it was a very expensive campaign. It was $40,000. My next campaign was half that, and my next campaign was half that. So, you know, the big expenditure of $40,000, when you put together $40,000, that's a lot of money. And you can't be beholden to anybody with that. Now, are there any $1 million gifts in Calgary and Edmonton? I would rather doubt it. I would rather doubt it.
Well, thank you. It's just honesty. It's nice to also educate people on this too, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of questions that people don't get the answers from.
Yeah.
And it's nice to understand it a bit better.
Well, and you know, there are all sorts of agencies where you can get money, but simply because, and I think the other piece that it needs to be said here is that when all the dust settles, each candidate has to file a financial statement of where their money went, where their money came from, and where their money went. And that's public. So, you know, you can go on the website and you can discover that Morris Flewwelling donated so much money to this person's campaign and so much money to that person's campaign, or didn't donate any money to anybody's campaign.
Great. Let's talk about yourself now a little bit. I know the election is one thing, but we wanted to get that across too. Looking at yourself now, once October 21st comes around, I'm sure you'll be not in here, probably I would say at home relaxing and enjoying some time with your wife, watching from outside, I think. What do we expect to see?
Well, first of all, I am still the mayor until the 28th.
Oh, there you go.
Many people don't realize that. I'm the mayor until the new council is sworn in on the 28th. So the people elected on the 21st will be called the mayor-elect and councillors-elect until the 28th. I'm not going to be mayoring during that time. My plan is to join the community, during seeing the election results come in, because I am desperately interested to know who's going to be on council and who's going to be the mayor. And I have a lot at stake in that personally. Then on the following day, Hazel and I intend to leave for Palm Springs. And we will be away for a few days because I don't want to be here during the post-mortem. I want the new people to be able to the community can focus on the new people.
Looking at yourself, do you consider yourself a mentor to those people who have been under your wing and been under council? Because I mean, that is part of what a mayor does, is the leadership role.
Yeah, it's interesting that you would ask that question, because we often joke about the class of 2004. That's 4 of the present council, and of course in 2004 that's when I became the mayor. So it's the mayor and 4 people moving together, and I think we've all mentored one another. Certainly in my years on council, I have used my experience many times to help guide council collectively and councillors individually. But it was really interesting when my retirement was announced at the mid-sized city mayors gathering. We the mid-sized cities, there are about 15 of us in Alberta, we gather on a periodic basis, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And in more than one of the messages that I got from people was that I was the most senior member of the group. In other words, I'd been a mayor the longest, and I'd been a councillor the longest of all of them. And they said, we look to you, to having been through a number of experiences, we look to you to mentor and to provide perspective on a number of things that we have going forward. And I hadn't really thought of it that way, but as soon as they said it, it clicked very much for me, because of course, at my age, I am one of the senior people, and I have put in more years than any of the rest of them. Many of them were elected just in the past term, and some 2 terms, but none 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7.
Looking at the relationship you built through the years as a mayor, and what you've done with different corporate community, not corporate, other communities in that sense, the mid-size, is there something that you're going to miss in this whole thing? Oh,
very much. I will miss the contact with the people. This job is pathetically dull if all you deal with is bylaw and policy and regulation, legislation, and the perfunctory parts of what we do. Even you know, budget approval and all of that can be pretty dull. The really interesting part of it is working with people to see what you can do to build community, and that is the energizing piece. Is it always does it always flow my way? No, it doesn't. That just you know, gives you more challenge. Sometimes things take a little longer. Sometimes you have to let it go. It wasn't the right idea, but working with people is the really fun part. I look at our city, well, first of all, my colleagues on council. They are a really special bunch of people, because they have sacrificed a good part of their life to serve on that council. And this council has been an exceptional council. The record of this council beats anything that I've been on, ever. And I've been on 7 councils. Having said that, that also extends to our staff. We have brilliant people working on staff. We have dedicated people, and we have lots of them. I mean, when we have a staff gathering like the United Way kickoff or something, and everybody gathers down at the bus barns, and everybody's there, the people who are working out in the field and the people who work in the offices and so on, the supervisors, the managers, everybody is there. It's a wonderful feeling to be part of that big group. And everybody contributes so much to making our city great. And then there are all the people who serve on all our volunteer boards. the city's boards and all the other boards. And the people who work in like the Chamber of Commerce and Red Deer College and the Westerner, these are all major people. People we work with in the county. We built a solid relationship with the people in the county, and it's all of that's the fun part of it. The people I see in my office every day, I've had 5 different people in my office, including you, and they're all totally different, you know? Each one comes at it from a different perspective, and so I will miss that part of it. Some of the agony I won't miss, but you know, you have to have the bitter to really appreciate the sweet, and you have to have the agony to appreciate the ecstasy. So if you don't have the yin and the yang, it all becomes beige mush. And so that's what I enjoy about this whole thing. The chase is wonderful.
A couple more questions and we're done. For you, as looking maybe just recently or further back, the biggest success while you were on council for yourself?
The biggest success for me while I was on council undoubtedly is building that strong relationship with the county. That relationship was broken when I assumed the mayor's chair. I knew that as a councillor. I knew that as a mayor. I had great difficulty with it. Eventually, by the county working and the city working, we reached middle ground, and now we have unified our planning, we have unified our regulation, we have unified our whole approach to all of central Alberta here, and it has just revolutionized everything. And so many people were involved in that, but of course, because I was mayor at the time, I'm the one who said, you know, they said, well, that was during your time that you began to build the relationship with the county. That clearly has had an effect economically, geographically, socially, financially, in every dimension. That's the biggest single thing. Now there's some other wonderful things, but that's the biggest single one. With
the good things, what is one thing that you see as one of the biggest, not mistakes, but maybe the thing that maybe was a thorn in the neighborhood?
The regret?
Yeah.
Likely the regret was doing the bike lanes as we did it when we did it. I'm the first to admit that in our enthusiasm to do what we thought was right, we tripped more than once. Now, did we trip on anything else? You bet we did. But nothing got the attention that the bike lanes has. And so I don't regret it so much. I just regret how we fell into some of the unnecessary parts of it. I still very, very much believe that, you know, people think on the bike lane issue that you're catering to a small vocal group. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The issue around the bike lanes, and again, I don't think we made this clear, and I don't think we certainly haven't had an opportunity to do that now, is that as we go down the road of the ages here, we need to look at various forms of transportation in our city. I could remember a time when we didn't have any transit system in Red Deer. Well, we've got transit now, but we don't curse it. So we've got transit, we've got sidewalks, we've connected our bus stops to our sidewalks. Didn't have that before. We have arterial roads and collector roads, and we try and maintain the roads in good condition. We have the bike paths through our parks, which are considered to be second to none in the province. So we have a number of things going for us. We stretched it into the bike lane thing and got a little bit of a shock. Not so when it came to moving into winter clearing of the trails. We ventured into winter clearing of the trails thinking, I don't know, we might get hammered on this one. And you know what? No one spoke against the winter clearing of the trails. So you never know till you do it. Now, were we pandering to a small minority? No, not likely. What we were doing is we were trying to engage our community in a broader view of how they're going to get around in the future. Remember, anybody under 16 years old does not have a driver's license. How do they get around the city? On a bike, transit, walk, rollerblade, longboard? Give them some opportunities. That was all that was about. We didn't do it right. My birthday isn't going to change over it. We can pick up our lumps and go. Did we waste $800,000? I don't think so. Did some good money get thrown after bad? I think so. Is it the end of the world? I don't think so. I can point to all sorts of things that collapsed that cost a whole lot more than $800,000, but nobody knows about them and nobody talks about it online.
Future-wise, let's see the city. Or two more questions. That's it. And then looking at the future for yourself. I mean, you guys have created a path. And kind of like, let's talk about the bike lane. You created a direction.
Riverlands.
Exactly. Where do you see this? Where is the?
That's my only regret in leaving right now, is that I won't be mayor, and of course I don't have to be mayor, to see it happen. But I would love to be there when it and have my hand on some of those levers when it's happening. I expected that we would be further along in Riverlands. We aren't. The economy went in the tank in 2008. There were a number of issues, the power line, sort of thing. But you know what? Few communities ever get a chance to reconfigure their downtown. To reconfigure their downtown without a railway, with a riverfront, with a park system, and 35 acres of city-owned land, that is a dream that most municipal politicians would die for. We have that, and the trick is we've got to get it right. We've got to have Riverlands develop into an entity of its own that's complementary to the historic downtown and is complementary to rail yards, which will be the wonderful downtown residential area. It's a huge order. It's not going to happen overnight. We've seen that. But over the next 20 years, that's the place to watch in Red Deer. So from the sidelines, I'll be able to see Riverlands unfold. The first thing that's going to happen is the power lines going underground.
This is your chance here to speak to the community and would wish your farewell of sorts. And I'd like to have you a chance to say to them, not to me. Chance to talk to them.
Well, my message to the community is thank you for the opportunity and the support that I've had to serve over the years. It's been heavy, but it's also been fun. And I'm really happy to leave on the note that I am leaving on. Politics is a bit like poker. You have to know when to get out. And I think I've chosen the right time for me and my family, and the right time for the city. I think the city is poised to go forward. After 9 years of direction from a mayor, it's time for a new mayor and a new voice and new eyes to take over. So I'm quite happy with that. If the term had been 3 years and there hadn't had to fight an election, I might have gone on. But a 4-year term coming up, an election, I don't think so. But I've really enjoyed it. I know that I often talk about myself, but really in the times that I've been on council and been mayor, that has engaged my family. And it has created some limitations for my family. And I've always had the support of my family, because you couldn't do this. It's an all-consuming thing, and you couldn't do this without the support of your family, so I thank them. I thank all the people that supported me. I thank all the people I worked with. And over the years, the councils. When we had that council meeting where we did the 100th anniversary council meeting, to have those councilors come back, councilors from before my time on council, back in the 70s, was really quite exciting to see those people and people I'd served with for years on council. So that was fun, and it reminded me of the richness of the opportunities we have in this community.